Good morning, everyone. I'm Melanie Orlando with Envision Mortgage Corporation. On behalf of my business partner, Bob Weber, and the entire Envision Mortgage team, welcome to Return on Relationships. We're thrilled to partner with Rob and his team to bring national speaker and New York Times best-selling author Tommy Spaulding to Wilmington to share his message about the incredible power of relationships. I've known Tommy now for several years. I was fortunate to meet him through my boyfriend, Joe, since they're cousins. And with that, I've had the opportunity to hear his message previously, and it's very compelling and inspiring. I think after you hear him speak, you'll realize that he has a powerful message and that you'll agree it's just a wonderful, he takes relationships to a whole new level. We share Tommy's passion for building authentic relationships. It's paramount at everything we do at Envision Mortgage. It's the foundation of who we are. We are in the business of building relationships. We may be in the business of home ownership, but it's building lifelong relationships with our clients, business partners, and the community at large that truly defines success. This philosophy is at the heart of what Tommy will share with us today. It's a message he's been cultivating and living his entire life. Having lived on 4 continents, working as a global ambassador, and traveling to more than 60 countries, Tommy's built his career on building authentic and genuine relationships. Currently, he's the president of the Spaulding Companies, a leadership development, training, coaching, and speaking organization. Prior to starting his own company, he was the president and CEO of the renowned international leadership nonprofit organization, Up With People. Tommy's passion for teaching and serving the youth of our country also led to his founding of several nationally acclaimed nonprofit youth leadership organizations. He's been the business partner sales manager at IBM Lotus Development and a member of the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, where he worked directly with the volunteers and staff of the 1996 Nagano Winter Olympic Games. Tommy is a fellow alum of East Carolina University. He's earned an MBA from Bond University in Australia, where he was a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, as well as an MA from Regis University, where he was a Colorado Trust Fellow. His first book, It's Not Just Who You Know, was released and published by Random House in August 2010. It's hit the New York Times best-selling list as number 2 on the Wall Street Journal, and number 1 on the USA Today National Bestsellers list. Kim Blanchard, author of The 1 Minute Manager and who wrote the foreword for It's Not Just Who You Know, says Tommy Spaulding is one of the most inspirational and talented speakers in the country today. I'm honored to call Tommy my friend and excited that he's here today to share his message. Please join me in welcoming Tommy Spaulding.
You did great. Where's my friend Pat that did the introduction before? Pat, it's interesting that you talked about the remote control because the inventor of the remote control happens to be in this audience. My first cousin, Joe Welsh here, and I grew up in Nyack, New York, and when I was a little kid, before the technology came out, he invented the remote control. Tommy, turn to channel 4. Tommy, turn up the volume. Tommy, that was the remote control. Anyway, it's great to be here. My cousin Joe and I went to school at East Carolina University, and I had a privilege of spending some time with a little fraternity brother that I haven't seen in 20 years. And I was drinking Diet Coke at Dockside all day, and he wasn't, so I'm not sure if he's here yet. He is here. Scott and Linda. Linda's here as well. So good friends of mine, Scott and Linda Diggs. Went to school with him 20 years ago, and it's great to reunite with him and his wife and his 2 beautiful kids. And then Jim Westmoreland from East Carolina University is in the audience, and when I was failing out at East Carolina on my 6th year there, he was, kept me motivated and said, you can do it, you can do it. Well, I did it, Jim. Thanks so much. Watching the football games yesterday, and I was here on Saturday watching East Carolina barely beat Virginia Tech, got me in the football mood, and I think about, the great football coaches of all times, and one of my favorite coaches of all time is Don Shula. I'm not sure if there's any Miami Dolphin fans in the room, but I'm a huge Don Shula fan, and I'm on the speaking circuit with him and got to meet him a couple times, and he's really just an incredible leader, and I want to share this story about him because it really defines what leadership's all about. when Shula was the coach of the Miami Dolphins, especially that year when they won 16 games in a row, he couldn't go anywhere in Miami without people going up to him and wanting to take his picture and his autograph and just want to talk to him about Sunday's game. And he was relatively kind of a private guy and a shy guy, and he hated the fanfare. So he convinced his wife that they wanted to buy a little cabin upstate New Hampshire in the middle of nowhere where no one would know them, or in the off season, so you can kind of get away from it all. So they found this little cabin, the population about 300 people in this little town in New Hampshire. And the first week that they were there, they were kind of walking around the town, discovering the town. They found this little old-fashioned movie theater. So they decided to go that evening. They walked in the theater. It was one of those old-fashioned theaters with one screen, the old-fashioned popcorn machine. And they walked in the theater, and there was a handful of people in the theater. And as soon as they saw Mr. and Mrs. Shula walk in the theater, everyone in the theater looked at them and got up and gave him a stand ovation. And his head gets really big, and he leans over to his wife and says, I can't even go in the middle of nowhere, not even in the middle of New Hampshire, without people knowing me. This is crazy. And his wife kind of, puts a pin to his head and lets all the steam out. And they watched this great movie. It was actually Schindler's List, which came out years ago. And it was one of those compelling movies that when he walked out of the theater, he started talking to some of the locals about the theater, about the movie. Isn't that movie incredible? And as Shula was talking to some of these people, he realized that these people had no idea who he was. They had no idea. So he was pondering. So he went up to the old man and said, Sir, do you know who I am? And the old man said, No, I have no idea who you are, sir. He said, why'd you give my wife and I a standing ovation when we walked in the theater? And the old man said, well, you must not be from around here. Because there were only 8 people in the movie theater. They don't start the movie till the 10th person shows up. So we're just all excited that you guys came. I just love that story. Because that really is the ultimate story of humility. And yesterday, having some beers with my buddy Scott and my cousin Joey, just looking over our lives the last 20 years. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. I'm a self-made businessman. I had incredible success, married kids. I have the most incredibly blessed and accomplished life. But it all didn't start that way. I actually failed out of high school because I'm completely dyslexic. And it did take me years and years and years to graduate college. When I went to high school, I watched my friends graduate magna cum laude and summa cum laude. I graduated high school, thank God almighty, cum laude. I mean, it's barely graduated. I mean, it was tough. I mean, dyslexia is a disease that you might look normal, but everything is scribbled, everything is scrambled, everything is tough. And I have a 6-year-old daughter that loves her daddy more than anything and wants her daddy to read to her. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have your 6-year-old daughter sit on your lap at night, every night, and try to read to her and realize that her daddy can't read? And you scribble words and you mix words, and she's correcting Cinderella at 6 years old. It's tough. And I didn't talk about my dyslexia for 20 years. I was ashamed of it. Matter of fact, Scott, my fraternity brother, said, I had no idea that you couldn't read. I went to even college with you because I was ashamed of it because I don't want to be called stupid because that's what I was called all through high school and so forth. So I kind of slid it under my book, but I wrote about it in my book. And thousands of people all over the country started writing letters saying, I'm a CEO, I run this huge company, I'm an entrepreneur, I run this company. Charles Schwab, all these incredible leaders in the world are all dyslexic. And, I had this scar in my heart, but dyslexia has been one of the greatest things because it's made me work hard and not give up. Because I remember when I went to my guidance counselor my senior year in high school, I went to Mr. Tilton, and I was a good kid. My parents were school teachers in the district. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a school teacher. And my sister was a school teacher. She married a school teacher. I have cousins that are school teachers. And I remember going to my guidance counselor and telling Mr. Tilton that I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to Notre Dame or Boston College, and my dream was to go to law school one day and then potentially run for office and become governor of New York. That was my childhood dream. 25 years later, I want nothing to do with politics. No offense to the politicians in here. But all I wanted to do as a kid is to become an attorney, go to law school, and run for office. And I remember going to Mr. Tilton my senior year and had my transcript in hand, and he pulled out my file, and he looked at me, and he said, Tommy, do you know your GPA? And I said, I don't know. What is it? He said, it's a 1.9. You need a 2.0 to even graduate Suffern High School. So I don't think college is for you. And I said, well, Mr. Tilton, I'm going to go to summer school because I went all 4 years in high school, but I'm going to go after my senior year and take 2 classes so I can get my GPA up high enough to graduate. And then he said, well, do you know what your SAT score is? And I said, I got a 640. He says, no offense, Tommy, but you get a 600 for writing your name and address on the damn test. It's pretty much the bottom 99 percentile of the SAT scores. And he says, do you know what your class ranking is? And I said, I don't know, but you're going to tell me. And he said, there's 596 people in Suffern High School that graduated, class of 87. How did you do you think? And I said, I don't know, you're going to tell me. He says, you graduated 590th. So I was a pretty smart kid. I did the math, and I said, I did better than 6 people. And he looks at me and said, Tommy, those 6 people dropped out of high school last semester, so you're pretty much the bottom of your class. And he wasn't a mean guy. He was just doing his job and saying, college is tough. You gotta be able to read. And he said, maybe college isn't for you. So he gave me a brochure, and the brochure was this company called BOCES, which is a trade school in upstate New York. There's nothing wrong with being a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician, but that wasn't my passion. But I made the dumbest decision in my life as I took that brochure and I signed up for BOCES. And instead of applying to colleges, I applied to BOCES, and that's where I was heading after I graduated high school 25 years ago. And then an organization called Up With People. Anyone ever heard of Up With People before? Many of you. It's an international global leadership musical organization. I don't sing or dance, but they came to my high school. About 2 months before graduation, they did this incredible international musical rock show on the stage of our auditorium. And I went with my parents and my girlfriend at the time. And I was just enthralled by 150 people on stage, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, black, white, rich, poor, communist, capitalist, all over the world, ages 18 to 25. And then at the end of the show, this beautiful girl from Sweden gets up on stage and says in this cute accent, if you want to travel around the world and your age is 18 to 25, come up on the stage and meet me. Well, I didn't want to travel. I just wanted to meet her. So I just ran up to the stage and started talking to her. And the first question I asked is, what kind of GPA do you need to get Up With People? She didn't know what a GPA was. What kind of SAT score do you need to get Up With People? She didn't know what an SAT score was. And she said, we're looking for people that want to build relationships with people all over the world. We're looking for people that want to live in host families, do community service, and change the world, and build bridges with people that are different than you. I said, well, sign me up. And then God, Up With People, accepted me, because instead of going to trade school, I spent a year of my life, which turned into 10 years of my life, traveling all over the world, living in 3,000 host families, and traveling to 60 countries, serving the world with Up With People, and it absolutely changed my life. And I wanted to go to college, and I applied to all these colleges. I didn't get accepted, but I had a cousin, Joe Welch, the inventor of the remote control over here, and Joe was a senior at East Carolina, and he was kind of my childhood hero because he was a great athlete and just kind of a stud, and I wanted to be like him. So I went to East Carolina, and he took me out to a bar, and I had my first drink and first dance with a pretty girl, and I said, this is where I got to go, to East Carolina. So 6 years later, I graduate, and here I am today. But I remember the time at East Carolina was an incredible experience, and I knew that I couldn't get into East Carolina, but I knew someone that knew someone that knew someone in the Board of Trustees of East Carolina and got me accepted to the school, and I'm incredibly indebted to this school because they were the only college that ever really accepted me. When I graduated East Carolina, I had the opportunity to travel the world more, work with other people, live in Japan, which I'm going to talk to you about, but I still had this childhood dream that I wanted to go to law school. That was really all I wanted to do, was go to law school and run for public office. So after East Carolina, when I was living in Japan, I took the LSAT score. Obviously, I can't read, so I bombed the test, and I had this strategy that there's about 450 accredited law schools in North America. And I knew I wasn't going to get accepted at any of the premier prestigious schools. So I did the research, and I really found out and researched the bottom 37 law schools in North America, really like the easiest law schools to get in. And the reason why I was 37 schools is because I saved up over East Carolina in my jobs, and the job I had at the time at Up With People, I saved $4,000. And I was living in Japan, and each application was about $100 a pop. So I had about $3,700 for the applications and about $300 for postage from Japan. So I researched the bottom 37 schools, the easiest ones to get into. And I haven't, shared this file at all for almost 20 years, but since I've been on the book tour, I share it all the time, and audiences love it. But these are the actually original 37 rejection letters of the worst law schools in North America. And I'm going to share some of these law schools, and I really want to apologize in advance if any of these law schools are your alma mater, because your law school is total crap. But Mercer University and Gonzaga University, Detroit University and Capital University and Creighton University, everyone rejects it. And I didn't know there was like 37 ways to go tell someone to go take a hike politely. But there are very unique ways to tell people they're not accepted.